Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands with a worn cloth, his eyes scanning the bustling repair bay of Station Omega-7. The massive space station orbited the neutral zone between human and Zephyrian territories, serving as a diplomatic hub where species from across the galaxy conducted business. As the station's chief mechanic, Marcus had seen every type of alien technology imaginable, but nothing quite prepared him for what walked through his workshop doors that morning. The creature stood nearly 8 feet tall, its crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. 6 arms moved with mechanical precision, each ending in delicate manipulator appendages that could perform tasks no human hand could manage. This was a Zephyrian, one of the most advanced species in the known galaxy, and from the ornate patterns etched into its carapace, Marcus could tell this wasn't just any ordinary citizen. "You are the human maintenance worker," the alien spoke, its voice carrying the characteristic harmonic overtones of its species. The universal translator rendered the words in perfect English, but Marcus could hear the underlying disdain in the alien's natural speech patterns. "I'm Marcus Chen, chief mechanical engineer of this station," Marcus replied, setting down his tools. "How can I help you?" The Zephyrian's compound eyes shifted, taking in the cluttered workshop with obvious disapproval. Tools hung from magnetic strips on the walls. Spare parts filled countless bins, and diagnostic equipment hummed quietly in the background. To Marcus, it was organized chaos. To the alien, it probably looked primitive. "I am Veltar Zinkaris, Supreme Technical Advisor to His Imperial Magnificence, Emperor Zelnoth of the 7th Crystalline Dynasty." The titles rolled off the alien's vocal apparatus like a formal proclamation. "My vessel has suffered what you primitives might call a malfunction." Marcus raised an eyebrow at the word primitives, but kept his expression neutral. He'd dealt with condescending aliens before, though none quite this openly hostile. "What kind of malfunction?" Veltar gestured with 4 of his arms simultaneously, a display that would have been impressive if not for the obvious frustration behind it. "The quantum resonance chamber has fallen out of phase alignment. The crystalline matrix that controls our faster-than-light drive has developed microscopic fractures. In short, the heart of our most advanced propulsion system has failed, and we are stranded in this backwater system." The alien's tone suggested that being stranded anywhere near humans was a fate worse than death. Marcus walked over to his computer terminal and pulled up the station's docking records. Sure enough, a Zephyrian Imperial vessel had arrived 3 hours ago and immediately requested emergency repair services. "Have you tried recalibrating the quantum field generators?" Marcus asked, scrolling through the technical specifications that appeared on his screen. Veltar's crystalline structure actually seemed to darken with indignation. "Do you think us incompetent? Of course we have attempted every standard repair protocol. We have run 17 different diagnostic routines, performed quantum field harmonization procedures, and even consulted the ancient crystalline matrices of our homeworld through subspace communication. Nothing has worked." Marcus nodded thoughtfully, studying the data. Zephyrian technology was indeed far beyond human understanding in many ways. Their ships used crystalline computers that operated on principles humans were only beginning to grasp, and their faster-than-light drives manipulated space-time itself through quantum field manipulation. But Marcus had noticed something interesting in his years of working on various alien technologies. "Mind if I take a look at the actual drive system?" he asked. The question seemed to physically pain the alien advisor. "You want to examine Imperial Zephyrian technology? You, a primitive tool user whose species has barely mastered interplanetary flight." "I've worked on a lot of different systems over the years," Marcus said calmly. "Sometimes a fresh perspective helps." Veltar was silent for a long moment, his compound eyes reflecting the workshop lights like 1,000 tiny mirrors. Finally, he spoke with the tone of someone being forced to accept the unthinkable. "Very well. But understand this, human. You will be examining technology that your species will not comprehend for another 1,000 years. If ever, you will touch systems so advanced that your primitive tools will likely damage them further. And when you inevitably fail, as all lesser species must when confronted with Zephyrian engineering excellence, Perhaps you will gain some small appreciation for the vast gulf that separates our civilizations. Marcus grabbed his toolkit, a collection of devices that had served him well over the years. Some were human-made. Others were alien tools he'd acquired through trade or salvage. He'd learned long ago that the best mechanics were adaptable, willing to learn from any source. The walk to the docking bay took 15 minutes, during which Veltar continued his commentary on human inferiority. Marcus half listened, more interested in the technical challenge ahead than the aliens' opinions. He'd always believed that every piece of technology, no matter how advanced, operated on fundamental principles that could be understood and repaired. The Zephyrian vessel was a work of art. Its hull seemed to be grown rather than built, with flowing curves and crystalline structures that caught and refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. The ship was easily 3 times the size of the largest human vessels, and Marcus could see why the Zephyrians considered themselves technologically superior. Inside the ship, the corridors were lined with softly glowing crystal formations that seemed to pulse with their own internal light. The air hummed with energy, and Marcus could feel the subtle vibrations of massive systems operating throughout the vessel. It was like being inside a living creature rather than a mechanical construct. They descended through several levels until they reached the ship's core, where the quantum resonance chamber dominated a vast spherical room. The chamber itself was a marvel, a crystalline sphere, 20 feet in diameter, suspended in the center of the space by energy fields that Marcus could see but not understand. Smaller crystals orbited the main sphere like tiny moons, their surfaces covered with patterns that shifted and changed as he watched. "Behold," Veltar announced with obvious pride, "the quantum resonance chamber of an imperial vessel. The crystalline matrix you see before you contains the accumulated knowledge of 10,000 years of Zephyrian science. Each crystal is grown in the heart of our sun over the course of centuries, then programmed with quantum information that allows it to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe." Marcus whistled low, genuinely impressed. He'd read about Zephyrian crystalline technology, but seeing it in person was something else entirely. The craftsmanship was beyond anything humans had achieved, and the power readings on his portable scanner were off the charts. "The problem," Veltar continued, "is that the primary resonance crystal has developed quantum fractures. You can see them there, those hairline imperfections in the central matrix. They disrupt the quantum field harmonics, preventing the chamber from achieving the coherent field states necessary for faster-than-light travel." Marcus studied the crystal, using his scanner to take detailed readings. The fractures were indeed microscopic, barely visible even with his equipment. But they were definitely there. More importantly, he could see the pattern they formed. "These fractures," he said slowly, "they're not random, are they?" Veltar's crystalline structure rippled, a sign of surprise in his species. "What do you mean?" "Look at the pattern." Marcus pointed to the central crystal, tracing the fractures with his finger. "They follow the crystal's natural stress lines, but they're also aligned with the quantum field generators. It's like the crystal is trying to resonate at 2 different frequencies simultaneously." The alien advisor moved closer, his compound eyes focusing on the areas Marcus had indicated. For the first time since their meeting, Veltar seemed to be taking him seriously. "Impossible. The resonance frequency is precisely calibrated to match the crystal's natural harmonics. There can be no conflict." Marcus pulled out a small device from his toolkit, a frequency analyzer he'd built himself using components from a dozen different alien technologies. He'd found that sometimes the best solutions came from combining different approaches in unexpected ways. "Mind if I run a harmonic analysis?" he asked. Veltar gestured his consent, though Marcus could sense the alien's skepticism. The analyzer hummed to life, its display filling with complex waveforms and frequency data. Marcus studied the readings, his brow furrowing in concentration. "There," he said, pointing to a series of secondary peaks in the frequency spectrum. "You've got interference patterns. Something else in the ship is generating quantum fields that are just slightly out of phase with your main resonance chamber." The alien advisor stared at the data, his crystalline structure beginning to darken again. But this time, it wasn't with indignation. It was with the dawning realization that the human might actually be onto something. "That should not be possible," Veltar said quietly. "All quantum systems on an imperial vessel are precisely synchronized. They have been for thousands of years. Marcus continued his scan, moving around the chamber to take readings from different angles. The interference pattern was subtle, but it was definitely there, creating a slow oscillation that would gradually stress the crystal matrix over time. "When was the last time you had this chamber serviced?" he asked. "Serviced?" The concept seemed foreign to Veltar. "These systems do not require servicing. They are crystalline matrices, grown and programmed to last for millennia. They are perfect." And there, Marcus thought, was the problem. In his experience, no system was perfect, no matter how advanced. Everything required maintenance, adjustment, and occasional repair. The Zephyrians had built their technology to be so advanced that they'd forgotten the fundamental truth that all mechanics understood. Everything breaks eventually. "What about other systems on the ship?" Marcus asked. "Any recent upgrades or modifications?" Veltar was quiet for a moment, his multiple arms moving in what Marcus had learned was a sign of deep thought in Zephyrian body language. "There was one addition," the alien finally admitted. 3 cycles ago, we installed a new quantum communication array. It was designed to allow instantaneous contact with the Imperial fleet across vast distances." Marcus nodded, pieces of the puzzle falling into place. "And I'll bet that communication array operates on quantum frequencies, right?" "Of course. All advanced communication systems utilize quantum entanglement for faster-than-light transmission." "And where is this array located?" Veltar gestured toward the upper levels of the ship. 7 decks above us, in the primary communication center. Marcus pulled out his scanner again, this time focusing on quantum field emanations from above. Sure enough, there was a faint but persistent signal coming from the direction Veltar had indicated. The frequency was almost identical to the resonance chamber's primary harmonic, but shifted just enough to create interference. "There's your problem," Marcus said, showing the readings to Veltar. "Your new communication array is broadcasting on a frequency that's creating quantum interference with your propulsion system. Over time, that interference has stressed your crystal matrix enough to cause microfractures." The alien advisor stared at the data for a long moment, his compound eyes reflecting the glow of the chamber around them. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost much of its earlier arrogance. "You are suggesting that the addition of one system has compromised the integrity of another? But that should have been detected during the installation process. Our engineers are the finest in the galaxy." Marcus shrugged. "Sometimes the best engineers are too close to their own work to see the obvious problems. Happens to humans all the time." "But even if your analysis is correct," Veltar continued, "the damage is already done. The crystal matrix is fractured. It would take months to grow a replacement crystal, and even longer to reprogram it with the necessary quantum information. We are still stranded." Marcus walked closer to the chamber, studying the suspended crystal from different angles. The fractures were indeed present, but they weren't as severe as he'd first thought. In fact, they reminded him of something he'd seen before in human technology. "Maybe not," he said slowly. "What if we could repair the fractures instead of replacing the entire crystal?" Veltar's crystalline structure actually changed color, shifting to a deep blue that Marcus assumed indicated shock or disbelief. "Repair a crystalline matrix? Impossible. The quantum programming alone would be disrupted beyond recovery. Even if the physical fractures could somehow be healed, the information stored in the crystal would be corrupted." But Marcus was already pulling tools from his kit, including several items that made Veltar's eyes widen in what might have been horror. Among them was a small welding torch, a set of precision files, and what appeared to be a tube of some kind of adhesive compound. "You cannot be serious," the alien said. "You intend to repair a quantum crystalline matrix with those primitive tools?" "Not primitive," Marcus corrected, examining the torch carefully. "Adaptive. This welding torch has been modified to work with crystalline structures. I picked up the technique from a Altarian gemsmith I met a few years back. And this adhesive isn't just any compound, it's a quantum-stable polymer that I developed for repairing crystal-based computer systems." Veltar's multiple arms began gesticulating wildly. Even if such techniques could work, which they cannot, you would need to understand the quantum programming language used in Zephyrian crystal matrices. The mathematical concepts alone are beyond your species' comprehension. Marcus looked up from his tools, a slight smile playing across his face. You know, that's the second time today you've told me something is beyond my comprehension. Maybe you're right, or maybe you're about to learn something about human ingenuity. Marcus began by carefully examining the fractured crystal with a magnifying device that projected its findings onto a holographic display. The fractures were more complex than they'd initially appeared, following intricate pathways through the crystal's internal structure. Each crack represented a disruption in the quantum information stored within, like breaks in an incredibly sophisticated circuit board. The pattern of these fractures tells a story, Marcus explained to Veltar, who watched with obvious skepticism. See how they radiate outward from these specific points? Those are stress concentration areas where the quantum interference hit hardest. Veltar moved closer, his compound eyes focusing on the display. Despite his earlier protests, intellectual curiosity was beginning to overcome his prejudice. You can read quantum stress patterns in crystalline structures? Not exactly, Marcus admitted. But I can read material stress patterns, and I've worked with enough crystal-based systems to recognize when they're failing due to harmonic interference. The quantum part might be beyond me, but the mechanical principles are the same whether we're talking about a crystal matrix or a steel beam. The alien advisor remained silent, processing this information. Marcus could see the internal conflict playing out in Veltar's posture, his scientific training warring with his preconceptions about human capabilities. Marcus began setting up his equipment, connecting various devices in ways that would have looked chaotic to a casual observer but followed a careful plan. He attached quantum field stabilizers to the chamber walls, positioned harmonic dampeners around the crystal, and prepared his modified welding torch with a special crystalline repair compound he'd developed over years of experimentation. Before I begin, Marcus said, I need to understand something about your quantum programming language. Not the specifics, but the basic structure. Is it hierarchical, linear, or does it follow some other pattern? Veltar's crystalline structure rippled with surprise. You ask perceptive questions for a primitive. The language follows a multi-dimensional matrix structure, with primary commands embedded in the crystal's atomic lattice and secondary instructions stored in quantum field fluctuations. So it's layered, Marcus mused, making adjustments to his equipment. Primary structure maintains basic functionality, while secondary layers handle complex operations. That's actually elegant. You comprehend this? Veltar's voice carried a note of genuine curiosity now, rather than condescension. I comprehend the concept. Human programming languages work similarly, though obviously not at the quantum level. The trick is to repair the physical structure first, then worry about the information layer. Marcus activated his field stabilizers, and immediately, the chaotic energy patterns around the fractured crystal began to calm. The quantum fluctuations that had been causing further deterioration were dampened, creating a stable working environment. Ingenious, Veltar murmured, studying the stabilizer readings. You are creating a localized quantum null field to prevent further cascade failures during repair. I'm creating a safe workspace, Marcus corrected. Same thing I'd do when working on any delicate system. The actual repair process was painstaking. Marcus worked with tools that seemed impossibly crude next to the sophisticated crystal matrix. Yet his hands moved with the confidence of long experience. He began with the smallest fractures, using his modified torch to carefully fuse the crystal structure back together. Each repair required precise control of temperature, pressure, and timing. Too much heat would disrupt the crystal's atomic structure. Too little wouldn't create a proper bond. The quantum-stable compound he applied helped bridge gaps in the crystal lattice, but it had to be applied in exactly the right proportions. This technique, Veltar observed, watching Marcus work. Where did you learn it? Where did you learn it? Necessity, Marcus replied, not looking up from his delicate work. Couple years ago, we had a Centaurian trade vessel come in with a cracked navigation crystal. Beautiful piece of work, but completely dead. The Centaurian said it couldn't be repaired, just like you're saying about this matrix. But the captain was broke, couldn't afford a replacement, and his crew was stuck here for months. Marcus paused his work to check the quantum readings on his scanner. The first set of repairs was holding, and the cascade failure pattern had stopped spreading. So I studied the problem, he continued. Learned everything I could about crystal technology from every species that would talk to me. Turns out a lot of different civilizations use crystal-based systems, and they all face similar problems when things go wrong. And you repaired their navigation system? Veltar asked. Better than repaired it. I improved it. See, the original crystal had a flaw in its growth pattern that made it vulnerable to stress fractures, so I reinforced those areas with the quantum-stable compound. When I was done, that crystal was actually stronger than when it was new. Veltar was silent for a long moment, processing this information. Marcus could practically see the alien's worldview shifting as he watched a primitive human successfully working with technology that was supposedly beyond his species' understanding. You speak of improving Centaurian technology as though it were a simple matter, Veltar said finally. Yet their crystal-growing techniques are among the finest in the galaxy. Marcus shrugged, moving on to a larger fracture that would require more complex repairs. Good techniques, but they were so focused on perfection during the growing process that they never developed good repair methods. It's like, imagine if you built the most beautiful house in the galaxy, but you never learned how to fix a leaky pipe. The analogy seemed to resonate with Veltar, who had spent his entire career working with technology that was designed never to fail. The concept of maintenance and repair was almost foreign to Zephyrian engineering philosophy. As Marcus worked deeper into the crystal matrix, the repairs became more challenging. Some fractures extended through multiple layers of the crystal structure, requiring him to work from several different angles simultaneously. His hands moved with surgeon-like precision, applying compounds, adjusting field harmonics, and monitoring quantum readings. The quantum programming, Marcus said as he worked. I can't read it directly, but I can see its effects. These areas here, where the fractures are most dense, they correspond to high-activity regions in your ship's system network, right? Veltar checked his own readings, his compound eyes widening in surprise. Correct. Those sections handle propulsion calculations and navigation processing. How did you determine this without access to our technical specifications? Quote, pattern recognition, Marcus explained. Heavy-use areas in any system show more wear and stress. Doesn't matter if it's a human combustion engine or a Zephyrian quantum matrix. The principles are the same. Arbraid. Lambdur. Arbraid. Lambdur. Arbraid. As the repairs progressed, something remarkable began to happen. The crystal matrix wasn't just healing, it was starting to perform better than before. Marcus's quantum-stable compounds were creating new pathways through the crystal structure, allowing information to flow more efficiently between different sections. Impossible, Veltar whispered, staring at his readouts. The quantum coherence levels are actually improving beyond original specifications. Potter, everyone. Everyone. Marcus smiled, continuing his delicate work. That's the beauty of adaptive repair techniques. Instead of just fixing what's broken, you strengthen what's weak. These compounds I'm using, they don't just fill gaps. They create new structural pathways that can handle stress better than the original crystal. End quote. But this means... Veltar trailed off, the implications hitting him. You are not merely repairing our technology. You are improving it. That's what good mechanics do, Marcus said simply. We don't just fix things, we make them better. The work took most of the day. Marcus paused occasionally to eat and rest his hands, but Veltar remained transfixed by the repair process, taking detailed notes and measurements. The alien advisor had gone from condescending to curious to genuinely impressed as he watched Marcus systematically solve problems that had stumped Zephyrian engineers. During one of their breaks, Veltar asked a question that had clearly been bothering him. Your techniques? They seem to draw from multiple technological traditions. How does one human acquire knowledge from so many different species? Marcus leaned back against the chamber wall, flexing his tired fingers. That's the thing about being a mechanic in a place like this station. You meet everyone. Work on everything. Most species are happy to share technical knowledge if you approach them with respect and genuine curiosity. But surely there are trade secrets, proprietary technologies that species guard jealously? Sure, Marcus acknowledged. But the basic principles of how things work, how they break, and how to fix them, those aren't secrets. They're universal laws. Material stress, energy transfer, harmonic resonance. These concepts work the same way, whether you're human, Zephyrian, or something else entirely. Veltar's crystalline structure shifted to a contemplative blue hue. You speak as though technology transcends species boundaries, doesn't it? Marcus asked. I mean, you use crystalline matrices. The Altarians use gemstone computers. Humans use silicon chips. But we're all trying to process information and solve problems. The tools are different, but the goals are the same. As afternoon turned to evening, Marcus made the final repairs to the quantum resonance chamber. The last fracture sealed with a satisfying harmonic chime that resonated through the crystalline structure. He powered down his equipment and stepped back to admire his work. The crystal matrix now glowed with a soft, steady light that pulsed in perfect rhythm. The chaotic energy patterns that had plagued the chamber were gone, replaced by smooth, coherent quantum fields. More importantly, the readings on both human and Zephyrian instruments showed performance levels that exceeded the matrix's original specifications. Run your diagnostics, Marcus suggested to Veltar. Let's see how we did. The alien advisor activated a series of tests, his multiple arms dancing across holographic control interfaces with practiced efficiency. The results appeared on displays throughout the chamber, showing system status, quantum coherence levels, and field stability measurements. Veltar stared at the readouts in silence for several long minutes. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a tone Marcus had never heard from him before. Wonder. The quantum resonance chamber is not merely functional, Veltar said slowly. It is performing at 115% of design specifications. The field coherence is more stable than when the crystal was first installed, and the power efficiency has improved by 8%. Marcus nodded, satisfied with the results. The compound I used creates micro-pathways through the crystal structure. Think of them as shortcuts for information flow. The quantum data can move more directly between processing nodes, which improves both speed and efficiency. You have taken Imperial Zephyrian technology, Veltar said, his voice filled with amazement. Technology that represents the pinnacle of our scientific achievement, and you have made it better using tools that I dismissed as primitive. Not primitive, Marcus corrected gently. Just different. Every species develops technology based on their unique perspective and needs. Humans are good at adaptation and improvisation because we've had to be. We don't always have the luxury of perfect conditions or unlimited resources, so we learn to make things work with whatever we have. Veltar activated the ship's propulsion systems for a test run. The quantum drives came online smoothly, with none of the instability that had plagued them before. The faster-than-light capability was fully restored, and the navigation computers reported full functionality. We can return to Imperial space, Veltar announced, though his tone suggested mixed feelings about this prospect. His Imperial Magnificence will be most pleased to learn that his vessel is operational again. Marcus began packing his tools, tired but satisfied with the day's work. He'd solved a complex technical problem, learned something new about crystalline technology, and helped a fellow being in need. For him, that was a good day's work. But as he prepared to leave, Veltar's next words stopped him cold. There is, however, one significant problem with what you have accomplished today, the alien advisor said, his crystalline structure darkening ominously. A problem that may have consequences far beyond the repair of one ship. Marcus froze, his toolkit halfway to his shoulder. The tone in Veltar's voice suggested something far more serious than gratitude or payment disputes. What kind of problem? Veltar's compound eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made the human mechanic suddenly aware of how alone they were in the depths of the alien vessel. You have demonstrated capabilities that challenge fundamental assumptions about your species. This presents a significant diplomatic complication. I fixed your engine, Marcus said carefully. How is that a diplomatic complication? The alien advisor began pacing around the quantum chamber, his 6 arms moving in agitated patterns. You must understand, the relationship between the Zephyrian Empire and your human territories is based on a carefully maintained balance. We are the advanced species. The technological leaders. Humans are useful for basic labor, resource extraction, and simple manufacturing. This arrangement benefits both species. Marcus felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. Are you saying that humans aren't supposed to be capable of what I just did? Precisely. Veltar stopped pacing and faced Marcus directly. If word of today's events reaches the Imperial Court, it will raise uncomfortable questions. How could a primitive species not only understand our technology but actually improve upon it? What other capabilities might humans possess that we have overlooked? The implications began to sink in. Marcus realized that his successful repair hadn't just solved a technical problem, it had potentially upset an entire galactic power structure. So, what happens now? Veltar was quiet for a long moment, his crystalline structure cycling through various colors as he processed the situation. His Imperial Magnificence, Emperor Zelnoth, has very specific views about the natural order of the galaxy. Species are ranked according to their technological achievement, and that ranking determines their place in the imperial hierarchy. Humans occupy a low position in this hierarchy by design. By design? Marcus's voice sharpened. You mean the Empire has been deliberately keeping humans from advancing? Not preventing, Veltar clarified, but certainly not encouraging. Why would we? Advanced human technology could potentially threaten imperial interests. It is better for all concerned if humans remain useful but dependent. Marcus set down his toolkit entirely, his mind racing through the implications. How many human colonies relied on Zephyrian technology for basic necessities? How many trade agreements were based on the assumption that humans were technologically inferior? How many opportunities for advancement had been subtly discouraged or diverted? But you fixed our quantum drive, Veltar continued. You demonstrated capabilities that suggest human potential far exceeds our estimates. If the Emperor learns of this, he will want to know what else we have been wrong about regarding your species. And that's bad because? Veltar's structure darkened to a deep purple. Because his Imperial Magnificence does not tolerate being wrong. When the Emperor discovers that his advisors have underestimated a potential rival, consequences tend to be severe. For the advisors, Marcus studied the alien's posture, reading the fear beneath the formal language. Veltar wasn't just worried about diplomatic complications. He was worried about his own survival. So you're thinking about covering this up? The thought had occurred to me, Veltar admitted. If I report that the repair was made using standard Zephyrian techniques, perhaps assisted by some basic human labor, the situation remains manageable. The Emperor receives his functional ship. I avoid punishment for underestimating humans, and the galactic order remains stable. And I keep quiet about what really happened. That would be appreciated. Marcus picked up his toolkit again, but didn't move toward the exit. Instead, he activated his portable scanner and began taking detailed readings of the repaired crystal matrix. You know, there's another option we haven't discussed. Which is, you could tell the truth. Veltar's compound eyes widened in what was clearly alarm. Absolutely not. The diplomatic ramifications alone would be catastrophic. Human-Zephyrian relations are carefully balanced. Revealing that humans possess advanced technical capabilities would require a complete reassessment of existing treaties and trade agreements. Maybe that's not such a bad thing, Marcus suggested, downloading data from his scanner. Maybe those agreements aren't as fair as they could be. You do not understand the complexity of interspecies politics. Change is disruptive. Disruption leads to conflict. It is better for all species if the current order is maintained. Marcus finished his scans and turned to face Veltar directly. Here's what I understand. You came here today convinced that humans were too primitive to help you. Now you've seen evidence that maybe you were wrong. The question is, what are you going to do with that information? Before Veltar could respond, a harmonic chime echoed through the chamber. Both beings looked up to see a holographic communication interface materializing near the quantum matrix. The device displayed the ornate seal of the Zephyrian Empire, indicating an incoming message of the highest priority. His Imperial Magnificence, Veltar whispered, his structure cycling rapidly through several colors. He wishes to speak with us. The hologram stabilized into the image of a massive Zephyrian, whose crystalline structure was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to move and shift as Marcus watched. This was clearly an individual of immense age and power, radiating authority even through the remote communication link. Veltar Zinkaris, the Emperor's voice resonated with harmonics that made the chamber walls vibrate. Report on the status of our vessel's repairs. Veltar straightened to his full height, assuming a formal posture. Your Imperial Magnificence, I am pleased to report that the quantum resonance chamber has been successfully restored to functionality. Excellent. How long until we can depart this primitive outpost? Marcus watched Veltar's internal struggle play out in the shifting colors of his crystalline structure. The alien advisor's gaze flicked between the Emperor's image and Marcus, weighing options and consequences. The repairs are complete, Your Imperial Magnificence. We can depart at your convenience. Good. And the repair techniques used? I trust they followed proper Imperial protocols? This was the moment of truth. Marcus could see Veltar wrestling with the decision, his structure cycling through colors that probably indicated severe stress. The safe answer was to claim credit for the repair using standard methods. The truthful answer risked everything. Your Imperial Magnificence, Veltar said slowly. The repairs were accomplished using unconventional methods. The Emperor's image leaned forward, his compound eyes focusing intently on the communication link. Explain. Veltar gestured toward Marcus, who suddenly found himself the focus of the most powerful being in the galaxy. The human mechanic on this station demonstrated capabilities that exceeded our initial assessments. Not only did he identify the cause of our malfunction, but he successfully repaired the quantum matrix using adaptive techniques that improved its performance beyond original specifications. The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat as he waited for the Emperor's response. When it came, the voice carried a tone of dangerous curiosity. You are telling me that a human successfully repaired Imperial technology? And improved upon it? Yes, Your Imperial Magnificence. Bring the human to me. Immediately. Marcus felt his knees go weak. Being summoned before an alien emperor was not on his list of career goals, especially one whose reaction to unexpected news was apparently to demand personal audiences. Your Imperial Magnificence, Veltar began. Perhaps it would be more appropriate to conduct a formal technical assessment first. Now, Veltar, I would speak with this human myself. The communication link expanded, creating a larger holographic space that could accommodate both beings. Marcus found himself standing virtually before the Emperor of the Zephyrian Empire, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. Human, the Emperor said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. You are Marcus Chen, maintenance worker of this station. Chief Mechanical Engineer, Marcus corrected, surprised by his own boldness. And yes, Your Imperial Magnificence. The Emperor studied him for a long moment, compound eyes reflecting countless tiny images of the human mechanic. You repaired our quantum resonance chamber. I did, using techniques unknown to Imperial engineers. Using adaptive repair methods that I've developed over several years of working with various alien technologies. And these techniques improved the performance of our systems. Marcus nodded. The quantum-stable compounds I used created new pathways through the crystal structure. They allow information to flow more efficiently, while providing better structural integrity than the original matrix. The Emperor was silent for several minutes, processing this information. Marcus could see Veltar growing increasingly agitated, his structure cycling through colors that probably indicated impending panic. Human Marcus Chen, the Emperor said finally. You have created an interesting situation. My advisors assured me that your species lacked the capability to understand, much less improve upon, imperial technology. Yet here you stand, having done exactly that. With respect, Your Imperial Magnificence, Marcus said. Maybe your advisors don't know humans as well as they think they do. Your Imperial Magnificence. Your Imperial Magnificence. If there had been silence before, it was nothing compared to the deathly quiet that followed this statement. Veltar looked like he was about to faint, and Marcus wondered if he'd just committed some sort of galactic treason. But then something unexpected happened. The Emperor began to laugh. It wasn't human laughter, of course. The sound was more like crystalline chimes mixed with harmonic resonances. But the intent was unmistakable. The most powerful being in the galaxy was amused. Bold words from a species my advisors dismiss as primitive, the Emperor said, his amusement evident in his voice. Tell me, human, what do you know of the natural order of the galaxy? I know that every species has different strengths, Marcus replied carefully. Some are good at one thing. Others excel at something else. I've never believed that technology is the only measure of a civilization's worth. Interesting perspective. And what would you say if I told you that the current galactic order depends on maintaining specific relationships between species? That sudden changes in these relationships could lead to widespread conflict? Marcus considered the question carefully. I'd say that any order built on keeping some species ignorant or dependent is probably not as stable as you think it is. Eventually, the truth has a way of coming out. The Emperor's compound eyes seemed to glow brighter, and Marcus wondered if he'd just sealed his fate with his honesty. Human Marcus Chen, the Emperor said, I have a proposition for you. I'm listening. You have demonstrated that humans possess capabilities we have overlooked. This suggests that our current assessments of many species may be incomplete or inaccurate. Rather than see this as a threat to imperial order, I choose to see it as an opportunity. Marcus felt a glimmer of hope, though he wasn't sure where this was leading. I am creating a new position within the Imperial Administration, the Emperor continued. Chief Technical Advisor for Interspecies Technology Integration. The role would involve studying the technological capabilities of various species throughout the galaxy, identifying overlooked potential, and developing methods to enhance cooperation between different technological traditions. Veltar's structure had gone completely pale, while Marcus struggled to process what he was hearing. You're offering me a job? I am offering you the chance to revolutionize how the galaxy approaches technological advancement. Instead of each species developing in isolation, imagine the possibilities if we combine the best ideas from all civilizations. Your repair of our quantum matrix is just the beginning. Marcus looked around the chamber, at the crystalline technology he'd just improved, at the alien advisor, who had gone from condescending to terrified in the space of a single day. The opportunity was staggering, but so were the implications. What about the existing order? Marcus asked. The treaties and trade agreements based on current species classifications will need to be renegotiated, the Emperor said matter-of-factly. Change is inevitable, human. The question is whether we guide that change constructively or allow it to occur chaotically. Your demonstration today suggests that the current system has outlived its usefulness. And if I refuse, then you return to your repair bay, and we pretend this conversation never happened. But the knowledge that humans can improve, imperial technology will spread eventually. When it does, the changes will happen anyway, but without proper guidance or control. Chaos, instead of managed evolution. Marcus realized that the Emperor was right. The secret was already out, at least partially. Veltar knew what had happened, and despite his fears, the alien was fundamentally honest. Eventually, the truth would emerge. If I accept, Marcus said slowly, I'd want guarantees about human autonomy. No species should be kept dependent or ignorant for political convenience. Anna. To them. Agreed. In fact, that would be part of your mandate. Assess all species for overlooked capabilities and recommend adjustments to their status within the Empire. And I'd want to bring my own team. There are other humans with skills that might be valuable. Of course, You understand your species better than my current advisors apparently do. Marcus took a deep breath, looking around the chamber one more time. He'd come here this morning to fix a broken machine. Now he was being offered the chance to help reshape galactic civilization. Your Imperial Magnificence, he said finally. The Emperor's image shifted, and what Marcus had learned was a Zephyrian expression of satisfaction. Excellent. Veltar will provide you with the necessary credentials and transport. I look forward to seeing what other surprises the galaxy has in store for us. As the communication link closed, Marcus found himself alone with Veltar, who was slowly returning to normal colors. You realize, the alien said quietly, that you have just accepted one of the most powerful positions in the galaxy. I realize that I've accepted the chance to make things better, Marcus replied. For humans, for Zephyrians, and for every other species that's been underestimated or overlooked. Veltar was quiet for a moment, then asked, "What will you do first in your new role?" Marcus smiled, shouldering his toolkit. "The same thing I've always done. Look for problems that need fixing, and find creative ways to solve them." As they left the quantum chamber, Marcus couldn't help but reflect on the day's events. He'd started the morning as a simple mechanic, and was ending it as a galactic diplomat. The Emperor had meant to insult human capabilities by calling them primitive. But that supposed weakness had become Marcus's greatest strength. Sometimes, he thought, the best solutions come from the most unexpected sources. And sometimes, what one species sees as a limitation, another sees as an opportunity. The galaxy was about to discover that human ingenuity was not a bug in the system, it was a feature. And Marcus Chen intended to prove that cooperation and creativity could accomplish far more than hierarchy and isolation ever could. Behind them, the repaired quantum resonance chamber hummed with perfect harmony. Its improved performance, a testament to what could be achieved when different perspectives worked together. It was, Marcus realized, a metaphor for what the galaxy could become. The age of human innovation was about to begin.